Good to have you here again. Every place on Earth has two kinds of people, the ones who never leave, the ones who leave and never really come back. We usually think this is about character, courage, or loyalty. But there's a much older version of this exact split, and it has nothing to do with people at all. Every year, millions of animals leave home. Most of the stories we tell about this are stories about return, the salmon that finds its way back across an entire ocean. The bird that landed, without fail, in last year's nest. We call it a miracle of navigation. But biologists have spent the last 50 years quietly staring at a much stranger fact. Every year, a portion of these animals, healthy, capable, with a fully functioning sense of direction, do something that looks, on paper, like a mistake. They deliberately get lost. They swim toward rivers they've never seen. They fly into territory with no map, no memory, no reason to expect anything good there. And for half a century, scientists assumed this was noise in the system, a glitch. It isn't. And once you understand why, you'll start seeing the same decision made over and over in places that have nothing to do with animals at all. Start with the miracle part, because it really is one. Pacific salmon are born in a single stream, often just one narrow tributary among hundreds branching off a river system. They swim to the ocean as juveniles and vanish for years, covering thousands of kilometers of open water. Then they turn around. In a famous 1950s experiment, biologist Arthur Hassler tagged two different streams with distinct chemical scents and imprinted young salmon on one of them before releasing the fish into the wild. Years later, almost every one of those fish came home to the exact stream carrying its childhood scent. They ignored the other one completely. It's called natal homing. Salmon memorizing the precise chemistry of the water they were born in before they've even left, and carrying that memory across an ocean. That's the part everyone finds impressive. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Every single year, some of the runners don't come home. They bypass their natal stream entirely and spawn somewhere they've never been. Biologists call it straying. For decades, this looked like failure. Then, in 1984, biologist Thomas Quinn proposed something stranger, that homing and straying aren't success and failure at all. They're two strategies, deliberately kept alive, inside the same gene pool. If a stream stays good, cold, clean, stable, the fish that comes home with total precision wins. But rivers aren't stable. A landslide buries a spawning bed. A drought empties a tributary overnight. If every salmon insisted on the one stream it remembered, a single bad year could end the entire lineage. So every year, a fraction of the run is built to leave and never look back, not because it failed to find home, but because straying is how the species claims new rivers before it needs to. Nature couldn't decide which strategy was correct. So evolution kept both. And once you know to look for it, you start seeing it everywhere. Some spiderlings never travel more than a few meters from where they hatched. Others climb to the highest point they can find, release a single thread of silk into the air, and let static electricity and wind currents carry them, sometimes hundreds of kilometers. Scientists call it ballooning. Charles Darwin recorded it firsthand, watching spiders land on the deck of his ship, far out at sea, having ridden the wind the entire way there. Same species. Two completely different bets on the future, running side by side, every single generation. Now take it up to something with a brain big enough to look, at least on the surface, like it's making a choice. A wolf pack usually has one breeding pair. Every year's pups grow up inside that pack, and by the time they're 1 or 2 years old, biologists observe a clean split. Some stay, helping raise the next litter, waiting years for a chance to inherit the territory. Others leave, permanently, alone, with no guaranteed mate and no guaranteed territory. They cross sometimes hundreds of kilometers of unfamiliar land. Wolf biologists have a name for this outward current, a dispersal pump. At any given moment, an estimated 5 to 20% of an entire wolf population is mid-journey, no pack, no home, actively searching for a place to start one. It's dangerous. A wolf alone has a real chance of dying without ever finding a mate or a territory. Wolf populations do it anyway, every year, on purpose. The ones who stay preserve what already works. The ones who leave make sure the species doesn't run out of futures. The day the one place they know gets crowded, hunted out, or destroyed. Here's what's actually running underneath all of it. The fish, the spiders, the wolves. It was never one strategy that's right and one that's a mistake. It's that no environment stays good forever, and the future, by definition, can't be predicted from where you're standing today. Evolution doesn't seem to be optimizing for the best answer. It's optimizing for the fact that nobody, not a fish, not a wolf, not evolution itself, actually knows which answer that is yet. Which brings us finally to something closer to home. Every place on Earth has the person who never leaves the town they were born in, who takes over the family shop, stays close to aging parents, raises their own kids 2 streets from where they grew up. And every place has the person who leaves at 18 and never really comes back. A different city, sometimes a different language, an entire adult life built on ground their childhood self never touched. One of them gets called loyal, the other gets called brave. A salmon that strays isn't braver than one that homes. A wolf that disperses isn't more adventurous than the one that stays to inherit the pack. They're not choosing a virtue. They're just what's left after a species spent a few million years making sure it never bet everything on one outcome. So imagine, for a second, if it had gone the other way. Imagine every salmon came home every time, without exception. One landslide, one bad year on one river, and the entire lineage ends with it. Imagine every seed fell straight down at the foot of its parent. The forest would never spread past the clearing it started in. Imagine every wolf stayed. No new packs, no new territory. Just one population, in one place, waiting for the day that place stops being enough. Nature wasn't choosing between staying and leaving. It was making sure the future never depended on only one answer. There's a film opening this week. A retelling of a war story that's almost 3,000 years old. A man spends 10 years trying to find his way home, and after monsters, storms, and a decade of disaster, he makes it. Fewer people know there was a second epic from a different poet about a different survivor of the same war. His name was Aeneas, and the gods forbade him from doing what Odysseus did. He wasn't allowed to go home. He had to build a new one instead. A city that eventually became Rome. 2 of the oldest epics in Western literature. Same war, same sea, 2 completely opposite answers to the same question. Maybe Homer wasn't writing fantasy, and neither was the poet who came after him. Maybe they were just the first 2 people to write down a pattern that rivers, forests, and wolf packs had already been running for a few million years before anyone thought to call it a story. I'm Leo, this is Pattern Notes. We gather here, and stories pass through us. This was one of them. See you next time.